It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. If you need to get a hold of me, you can reach me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. If you just email me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Really excited about today's show. Okay, we have really an American icon. You remember Girls Gone Wild? We have the creator of Girls Gone Wild, Joe Francis, on the show. And there was just a recent documentary came about him too, and he's got his own coming out too with Mario Lopez. It's going to be on Netflix. You could find him on Instagram at Real Joe Francis, and also his website is meetjoefrancis.com. Mr. Joe Francis, are you there?
I'm there, Ed. How are you?
I'm losing my breath, bro. That's how I'm doing. All right, man.
Why is that?
Because I'm getting old. I'm falling apart. And I usually take these things earlier in the day, too.
How old are you, Ed?
63. 63.
Okay.
This is what you have to look forward to.
Well, you're keeping it going. Ed. So,
I'm trying,
so good
man.
for you.
So listen, everyone's heard of Girls Gone Wild, but tell the audience, who is Joe Francis?
I'm the guy that created it, I guess. And no, I am. I'm the man that created it all and started that lovely brand that changed the world forever and the vernacular forever, and hopefully pleased a lot of young men and old men and older men all over the world, and women who enjoyed being in it.
Yeah,
so I'm that guy.
Yeah, constant infomercials every night, all night long. Girls Gone Wild.
Yeah, right?
Well, what happened to it? Why don't we see that anymore?
Well, once I walked away from the business, it went bankrupt and it failed. So, that proves that I was a key part of that business. And I wasn't going to do that business past 40, and that was a decision that I had made with myself long before I arrived at that age, because I started that business at a very young age. I was, 23 years old, running that business. So for me, getting to that, level was it. 40, I'm out, and then it failed without me. So I was an integral part of that business.
And has anybody tried to duplicate this or recreate it since you stopped?
I mean, I'm sure they have, but no one can, because it's a brand and it was created over so much time. And people have an association to the brand. And like you said, watching the infomercials or watching the commercials, and that can't be created again because you don't have television time. You don't even have anybody's focused attention at all, other than like a major news event or a major sporting event at any one time. Or hopefully, these days the award shows are doing better. And like you said, like Girls Gone Wild infomercials and commercials were ubiquitous. They were always on all the time, Ed. You would see Girls Gone Wild, Girls Gone Wild, Girls Gone Wild. In today's media environment, in today's a streaming environment, you can't recreate that. You can never. I mean, I'm not saying you, I'm saying anyone. I couldn't either. I couldn't recreate that because that was then. I mean, there's just no concentration of eyeballs in that place at any one time on anything anymore. Everyone's on social media or this or that or the other app, nobody's watching TV anymore. And,
or even have the attention span, or you don't even have VHS tapes to order it and wait, to show up at your door anymore. What are you doing these days?
Yeah, I invest a lot. And I enjoy my life and a lot of real estate.
Yeah, and I know you got this house down there that you rent out down in Mexico, Casa Ara Maria.
Correct. Across the RMR. Yeah.
RMR. Okay. And but you
beautiful.
just recently, though, because you've had a lot of problems over the years. Okay, different litigation, several kidnappings. At least one. What just happened recently? One of your own bodyguards set you up, and they took off some money off you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What happened?
In about March of this past year, 2024, I was set up by this bodyguard I had by the name of Miguel Jimenez, and he set me up with a bunch of his buddies, and he was a total inside job, and had me grabbed, tied up, and then hit in the face, and then left in the bushes while he went with them to go rob my house, and stole a car from me as well at the same time. So quite tragic. But yeah, as you mentioned earlier, it was my third kidnapping. So it wasn't the first time, and I wasn't kidnapped this time. The other two times I had been kidnapped. So famously.
I actually only knew about two of them, but we'll have to get into that. Now, by the way, this isn't some kind of like, ghetto of Mexico, man. Like Bill Gates is your neighbor, right?
Yeah, he is one of them. I mean, like, yeah, I don't live in the ghetto. I did really well, and yeah. And honestly, I think my house is nicer than Bill Gates, and everybody else does too. So that's the truth. I'm not bragging.
So then, you got the guy's name, you know where he lives. You must have a lot of information on him and his buddies. And have you gone to the police with this? What's going on with the case?
Yeah, and things are underway. So I can't talk about that. I can't talk about the legal parts. But yeah, the things are underway, and then things will happen, and then I will keep you up to date as things do happen. But this is a radio show, and they have to do their police work.
Gotcha. And right. There was an incident too at the hospital. You had a problem with the hospital too, right?
Yeah. Now, that was the ultimate kicker, because I had actually thought that I was friends or knew the owner of the hospital who was there this night, and I came in with non-life-threatening injuries. Simply a black eye, hairline fracture on my rib. They took a toxicology report right away, so they knew there was no drugs or alcohol in my system, which is like just standard, I guess. And my eye was badly beat up. I mean, as you can see from those pictures if you go to realjoefrancis.com, I have the pictures posted from the police that the police took. Was standing in the hospital when I arrived. So then, cut to about 2 weeks later, I wake like a nightmare from a coma, and they tell me that 2 weeks passed, and it's this date, and I'm like, what happened? I can't move my legs. I think I'm paralyzed from the waist down. I'm told that I came in a coma of total amnesia. Mm-hmm. So, it was crazy. Like I couldn't walk for days. I had to relearn how to walk and everything. I had never even been in a hospital. But this is radio. I can't say. Let's say it starts with an A and ends with an H-O-L.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Okay. Something like that. These guys put me in a medical coma, and tried to just bilk my insurance company, the Sam Najmabadi, who owns the Punta Mita Hospital. If you ever go to Punta Mita, it's a beautiful place. Don't go to the Punta Mita Hospital. Be careful. Beware.
Yeah, if you go to Real Joe Francis on Instagram, you could see he's standing up. His eye looks, it looks like a cartoon, a beat up eye, like you would see in the old cartoons. It's black. Do you lose any vision in that eye?
Yeah. Wait, did I lose vision? No, I didn't. Thank God.
Yeah, it's a bad black eye, but he's standing up. He's posing. He's pointing to injuries. He's not in a coma, anything kind of coma kind of situation. He's not unconscious. I think you're even holding some duct tape in your hand. Is that the duct tape they used to tie you up?
Exactly. I had just got free. Yeah, because it had DNA and fingerprints on it, so I wanted to make sure that the police had that.
Okay, but and what about your current security now? What do you do? Even a transition like that? That's a big risky time in your life.
Well, it was, but it was an inside job
Right.
with a bodyguard that worked for me. And then get this, the police are like, investigate the whole thing. And of course, it turns out to be an inside job, and most are like 95% of these types of things in Mexico are inside jobs. So, I dramatically reduced my security, changed my protocol, everything, my people, and I feel so much safer. I'll tell you, I really do with my new security.
Yeah.
So, these guys are just bad news. And I don't care who you are, you can always get corruption that infiltrates your security detail, no matter who they are.
Yeah.
Because people are people.
And Mexico does have that reputation, What are you going to do?
And Vegas does too.
Yeah. I'm from Vegas.
Look at the mob.
Yeah,
Look at the mob in Vegas, right?
Which brings up a question, because I know you had a run-in with Steve Wynn, and he's part of the reason why you wound up down in Mexico, right? Do you think that he was
part of the reason?
Do you think he's the biggest problem in your life?
Steve Wynn is not. I'm not. No, Steve Wynn is not a problem in my life. I'm not in Mexico because of Steve Wynn.
Okay.
I mean, there's no way. No.
But Steve Wynn is a guy. If you have a problem with Steve Wynn, that's a big problem in your life. You don't think that he was the impetus of all your problems?
No. Go to abbywilson.com. ABBEY Wilson WILSON.com and read her restraining order. And that is why I do not go to the United States. And it is because if you go to abbywilson.com, when she kidnapped my kids after our divorce and custody settlement, she went to Oklahoma, which I've never been before, and said that I molested my kids in the state of Oklahoma. And that's all on there. So that's why I don't go back to the U.S. Steve Wynn can go F himself.
Right.
I'm not afraid of Steve Wynn.
Okay, so
he's Steve Wynn's a rapist, and no one's afraid of Steve Wynn. After he was Me Too'd and thrown out of his company and thrown out of his hotel and just branded a rapist, nobody cares about Steve Wynn.
Okay, but there was a time when Steve Wynn was a problem.
And he was raping girls in the casino.
Yeah,
right?
And those stories are out there, and also, too, the guy was a GOP chair or something at the time, too. So your problem
he was raping girls in his own casino.
So your big problem right now is with the ex-girlfriend and the custody of your children?
Right.
Do you get to see him at all?
No. Unfortunately, I do because I have full custody, but she has been kidnapped. And there's corruption in the United States, too.
Oh, yeah.
There's corruption in the U.S. judicial system, so that's what's preventing it. It should work. I have the custody. I won. Excuse me. I have the custody of my daughters.
But physically, they're in Oklahoma right now.
Correct.
And you have no access to
them. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I fought for. I was in a custody battle with my daughter for 15 years. Okay, man.
Wow.
Yeah. And
you understand.
Man, let me tell you something, man. When we were looking at colleges, we found out my ex-wife stole the college fund. Okay. And got away with it.
You found out your ex-wife what?
Stole the college fund. We were touring Pepperdine, man. Okay. And then we found out we had no money. But anyway, that's everyone has these horror stories with family court and stuff like that. So you got my prayers. Trust me on that, okay? But when you read stories about Joe Francis, it says the reason you're in Mexico is to avoid some kind of warrant, but there really isn't a warrant issued, though, is there?
No, it's bullshit. But Google it. I mean, it's all bullshit, and the media is the media. It's like if there was a warrant, like pretty easy to find me. I mean, pretty easy to come get me. You can come get me, guys. I'm here. My address is on the internet.
Oh yeah, so, you just gave it to us. Trying to rent out the house there. Okay.
I just gave you my address, so come on down.
Right.
Look forward to it.
So then, what was the litigation in Florida? I guess that was one of the big problems. We're going in reverse order, back to from present backwards. Yeah. Normally, I do it the other way around.
It's your show, my friend. It's your show. Yeah. Go ahead. You can do it however you do it.
Well, describe what happened in Florida, because didn't you wind up representing yourself in Florida?
I did. I wound up representing myself because I walked into the federal court that day, and this was the big trial that they accused me of all these horrible things of being the big bad monster, the racketeering, the prostitution, the touching my penis, the underage girl, just all their big charges. And this is federal court, like P. Diddy stuff, not like state court or local. These are federal charges. And so my lawyer, Rick Bateman, who's now dead, was handling this case. And he had handled the case for years. So he knew all the things, had taken depositions, which you're allowed to do in Florida, in discovery in a criminal matter. It's the only state that does that I know of. Other than I did do that in Nebraska as well. But
there are some exceptions where you can't take a deposition in a criminal case if the witness is on their last leg, they're about to die, and all kind of stuff like that.
We're not in California either. You just can't at all. There's nothing like that. But anyways, these states have those things. Anyway, he had all those records, right?
Yeah.
And it's to make the process quicker, right? And he had all the things. Like, I didn't know, other than the facts that I was there. And look, this is the first time I've ever been a federal lawyer. So he just said, he took me to that back attorney-client room right before the trial was beginning. I'm in my suit and tie, we're about to pick a jury. And he said, "Hey, my dad died last night." And I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that." He goes, "Well," I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" He said, "I'm going to ask the judge for a continuance." And I go, "Rick," I said, "Rick, the judge has never, this is the same judge, Ed, that put me in jail. He put me in jail for 11 and a half months for contempt of court." And Rick Bateman is telling me that he is going to get this judge to give a continuance on my death sentence, basically, which was this trial, right? Without a lawyer, it would have been a death sentence, right? So in the back of that courtroom, we went, and I said, "Rick, I said, you can't do this to me." Then he hands me the Florida book of federal code procedures, which is different in every district of federal code. So what I did was, I did Adderall all night long and read that whole book. Well, we went in there. Okay, we went in there, and it was exactly as I told you. I said, the judge denied it. I said, "There's no way." The judge denied the continuance and said, "Are you ready to pick the jury, Mr. Francis?" And because you're representing yourself. Now, that was a mistake on his part, by the way, because then I had to represent myself. Then I was able to get like a few days to get like 1 day, 24 hours to get the documents. So I flew in my old assistant to go to this guy's office to get documents, at least to understand how to, do a trial. So I read all of that, so I understood, and I walked in, I represented myself. It was a 2-week trial, 8-woman jury, and I had a unanimous verdict, and I was cleared forever and acquitted of all of those horrible, heinous accusations that they still repeat in documentaries and say I was accused of them and acquitted. So it's like they quit saying that I was ever accused of something that didn't happen. So that's what frustrated me.
And is it true? Because I had Steph Watts on the show.
Oh, great. I love Steph. Yeah, pick the jury with me.
Yeah. How did I love Steph Watts, man. Okay, I love him, but if I'm facing jail time in federal court, I'm not going to have him as my co-counsel. How'd you pick him?
Well, here's what happened. So it was like a wedding ad. So like all the people for the bride sat on one side and all the people for the groom sat on the other. And I didn't have many friends, right? Mm-hmm. So I needed fair reporting, right? Because I knew the AP wasn't going to cover me fair. I knew everybody else was covering it like my death sentence, right? And so I flew Steph in. He's a friend and a reporter, so I flew him in to cover it. And I said, just cover it for me. Just write it all down and get these press releases out. And then he ended up he ended up sitting in as my co-counsel and picking the jury in the judge's chambers with me. And it was hysterical. And the judge, I mean, he'll tell you, it was so rigged against us. Yeah. I mean, they did so many things. I mean, thank God this Judge Smoke, this federal judge, there are only a handful of federal judges that have ever been removed from the bench. And after what he did to me, finally I had him removed from the bench. And you can Google that as well. Yeah,
weren't you making some kind of allegations about this judge? If my memory, maybe child pornography or something like that? Something pretty wild, right?
Mm-hmm. What? The judge?
Yeah, you were making some kind of really wild allegations about the judge.
No. We never had that.
Okay.
No.
I'm misremembered. But now, at one point, you had Roy Black, right?
Correct.
And what happened there?
That was another case. We won that as well. In the same, but those were state charges.
Right.
The ones I told you about were federal.
What do you think it was that caused all this attention on you, this prosecutorial attention on Joe Francis?
It is exactly what you said in the beginning of this broadcast. It was ubiquitous. Girls Gone Wild infomercials were everywhere. Joe Francis was everywhere all the time, living, or the persona of Joe Francis, right? You ask who really Joe Francis is. The persona of Joe Francis was on your TV 24/7 with the most beautiful women in the world, doing things that probably you weren't able to do. So who knows? You were either on the side of, yeah, you're my hero, or jealousy. I'm going to get you. Right?
I guess. You really think that's it?
I don't know.
Wait, let me ask you this. Because how about this? There was an incident when I lived in Las Vegas where Beecher's Madhouse was starting out, right? And he went to the aquarium, right? He goes to the aquarium and he jumps in the aquarium, right? And somehow Joe Francis gets arrested or grabbed and dragged through the casino. What happened there? You were just walking by, right?
Have you had Beach? Yeah, that was funny. Have you had Beecher on about this?
No, I haven't. No, I should. I didn't even think about it.
Well, the funny is, I was on the phone with a business associate the other day, and asked him to text Beecher because we were talking about Beecher, and I said, asked him to say who made you famous, and he goes, I'm not texting somebody that. I go text him. I said, who made you famous? And then he just texted him that on my request. And then he said, Joe Francis. He goes, why, are you with him? So. But anyways, how that happened is he was doing just some comedian stunt. I was walking out of the backstage of the Billboard Awards with, at that time, who was Ira Curran, the head of Fox, Glenn Litwack, my attorney, right, Irish friend from Beverly Hills, and a friend of mine, RJ Williams, and we were just walking out of the back of that thing, and then some dumb security guard. Everybody else is lining up watching Beecher, and their cameras next to me, and everyone else is and then some dumb security guard goes, "Oh, it's a Girls Gone Wild stunt," and grabs me, stupidly throws me down, and they ended up having to pay and settle me and for lots of money. But I mean, it was funny because Beecher was like, "I don't know this guy." We're in the jail at the MGM before they let me go and apologize. We're at the jail in the MGM, and these guys are saying, you know, you should have thought of that before you jumped in that fish tank. And like, Beecher's in the next cell, soaking wet, like dripping out water everywhere. I'm completely dry with my Billboard like decal on my laminate. It's hilarious.
Yeah, right. Because for people in the audience saying, "Hey, it's hard to believe that the state of Florida and the P. Diddy federal government went after Joe Francis for no reason," they did it at the casino. They went after Joe Francis for no reason, just because he was walking by. And I've heard that story. I've heard that story living in Vegas. Oh boy. So Beecher's Madhouse.
Wait, you heard that on TV, or you heard it?
No, just from
Beecher.
I lived in Vegas a long time. Just knowing people, Now, what about you? You had a friendship with Larry Flint.
I had what?
A friendship with Larry Flint.
A great friendship. Yeah, I love Larry. And Larry was one of the reasons why I left the business.
Oh, really?
And didn't stay in. Yeah. Because he was like, Republicans are coming again, which is what happened. And God bless his soul. And, not that I like Republicans, right? Now, I mean, look, Elon Musk was my neighbor in Bel Air for 13 years. So and Donald Trump is a friend of mine. So I'm really happy those two are running the country. But there's nobody else that I would want to see running the country than Elon Musk. And Donald Trump, right? Sorry, in your question.
Oh, Larry Flint. Who reached out to who? He reached out to you. You reached out to him. How'd you meet?
We met through a mutual friend, Michael. Oh, right when I was popping in Girls Gone Wild. I mean, the same thing. Like when I met Hef, I met him, and everybody was curious because we were the big dog. We were eating all these guys' lunch, so they wanted to know who they were up against. But Larry and I fostered a mentor friendship and a business friendship. I mean, we were able to do millions of dollars in business, remain friends. And he was just a great guy all around. And it's just a huge loss, his death, honestly, because he really was just that pure person that wanted nothing more than to have girls, get laid, gamble, all the finer things that a man enjoys, right?
I just recently I interviewed his last head of security, Alan Graham, who was Jim Morrison's brother-in-law. And he went in there and took over all the Larry Flint security and kicked out all those CIA guys and those hitmen and all those guys that Flint used to have. Mitch Rebel and Gordon Novell and all those, Bill Menser, all those characters. Just had him on the show. Did you happen to run into any of those bodyguards around Flint?
For sure, all the time. I had mine and he had his. And, he needed his more than I needed mine. Yeah. And the one thing Larry told me, we had always these, one of the things that really taught me about retiring. And, I knew it wasn't like Hefner or whatever, when Hefner, was younger and he would try to get me to retire, or Christie, because they didn't want the competition. Larry was coming from the heart. And he was like, he looked at me one time, and he had this. I don't know if you know this, but he had this special lowered table at the Four Seasons where, because it was wheelchair height, which is lower than chair height. So, you would sit down there. So it was, and he would always grab me, with his hand, and he was like an aggressive talker, like I am too. And he said to me, he's like, Joe, do you want to end up like me? And he would tell me these amazing stories that I would need 10 broadcasts to tell you the stories that Larry's told me. Like, and Quincy Jones, like all these people that I've been fortunate to be friends with. But he's like, do you want to end up like me? Do you want to end up in one of these chairs? He's like, yeah, get out, And I was like, all right, he's right. I'm getting out. So that's why I didn't go back to business.
So those stories you hear about Flint having all that blackmail dirt and videos on celebrities and politicians and stuff like that, did he ever confide any of that to you?
My conversations with him in private are between me and him. I mean, he's that.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
I wouldn't repeat his private conversations.
Gotcha.
And I wouldn't repeat Quincy's private conversations because he didn't mean for those conversations to become public.
Yeah,
if he was still alive, it would be different.
Yeah, Quincy Jones, toward the end there, he did reveal some stuff about the Marlon Brando and stuff. He had some very interesting stories to tell.
Yeah. I've known all that forever.
Really? I tell you, what a life, man. Sure, what a life. I hope...
Quincy Jones, Elon Musk, and myself own the only private street in Bel Air. And Elon lived there for like 13 years. Quincy lived there for 20-something years next to me, and I lived there for 20 years next to all of them. So that was it. And those were our friends, too. And then I bought the first Tesla ever in the history of the world from Elon for $100,000 in cash in 2004 when it's just an idea of a company. I wish I had bought the stock. I didn't. But I bought that, and he delivered it to me personally in 2008. Wow. The first ever Tesla one off of a thing. And then Quincy and me and Elon, we'd have dinners and lunches all the time at his house. Quincy would be over at my house all the time and come over with Oprah and Denzel. It was quite the street. It was quite the interesting crowd to associate with. And I loved Quincy deeply. So.
Well, now that you're down in Mexico, do you get a chance to stay in touch with people?
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Oh, for sure. I mean, I live in basically a hotel. I mean, yeah. Casa Aramara. Or if you go look right now at casaaramara.com or Google Casa Aramara, CASAARAMARA,
yeah, that
will show you where I live. And it is quite the palace of palaces, I think, and a fantastic place to live. So it's not, like you said, I'm living next to Bill Gates. No,
you can't beat that. Okay.
Mario Lopez. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking, Mario.
I'm sure Mario stays with you when it comes down, right?
Yeah. Well, Mario has I shouldn't even say it. Mario has hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate. He's rich.
Really?
But he does stay with me. I shouldn't even say that. Probably it's private. But Mario is a rich man. Really? Mario Lopez. Don't be fooled. Mario Lopez is a rich man. But I don't know if I should be saying that.
Yeah, don't worry.
But he's wisely frugal. Mm-hmm. Because like me, he started from nothing. But Ed, you saw in this documentary, right? They once again accuse me of not. They want to take away my backstory, correct? They want to.
You know what, man? I actually didn't watch a documentary. I didn't watch it. I like to go into these things a little fresh, keep it fresh. I haven't studied Joel too much. You came into my memory more recently because I saw that beating you took and that whole story there, and I says, "Whoa!" And that's when I sent you that message, trying to get a hold of you. And plus, I knew you had great stories. What about the other two kidnappings? Those are very interesting stories too, as well.
Well, the first kidnapping, and it was widely publicized. If you ever watched the show Dateline, and you can Google the Dateline episode. Do you remember this whole episode?
Yeah.
And this is when this kidnapper,
a friend of Paris Hilton. Yeah, Paris Hilton was involved in it.
And
right.
she did. Yeah, and Paris Hilton was my girlfriend right before, or at the time. I think it was right before. And he also kidnapped and robbed her and her sister.
Oh, really?
She did not choose to press charge and testify out of fear for her life. I did, and that was the story. And the police recorded calls with everybody. They arrested him. I was with my girlfriend at the time, who was the owner of Tamar Mellon, the owner of Jimmy Choo. We were with Mick Jagger in the island of Mystique, Tommy Hilfiger's house, and I got a call and said, "Is this Joe Francis?" And I said, "Yes, it is. Who is this?" He says, "This is Commander whatever of the U.S. Marshals. Where are you?" I said, "I am stepping away from the table. Hold on a second," because I was talking to Mick Jagger at that moment. And then he said, "I need to know where you are." And I said, "Okay, I'm in Mystique." And he goes, "Okay, I'm calling you to make sure you're safe. Are you safe?" And I said, "Yes, I'm safe." He goes, "All right, this is in regards to whatever. We are taking down the suspect in the next few minutes. Please remain out of the country and contact us before you re-enter the country. We will notify you." And then that was when they took him down. So...
Incredible. But this guy, first he had ripped off Paris Hilton, but wasn't she a friend of his?
Well, it's a convoluted story.
Yeah.
But, he was extorting both of us.
Okay.
He was extorting her, and he was extorting me. So, you really can't say friend at that point, because there was extortion happening. So a friend wouldn't extort another friend, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, he was a friend at one point, but then he started taking a shot at you.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think that's more of an accurate description of the relationship. But it's pretty horrible, like a pretty horrible description.
Yeah. Now, but you go back with Paris Hilton. Like, what was your connection to the one night in Paris with Rick Solomon?
I know Rick and I know Paris, but that was, and I would have had it stopped. I mean, if Paris wanted that video, or Rick or Kathy wanted that video not out, I could have stopped that video. But whatever, that's what they wanted. So. And then I have, if you Google Paris takes a bath nude or Paris takes a bath naked, there is a sex tape without my face of me dictating Paris Hilton to do nudity in the bathtub. And that was her choice to release that on the internet as well. It only contains my voice and not my face.
Gotcha. I knew there was some connection there. Now, what about but weren't you friends with Paris Hilton before Girls Gone Wild?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I don't know. Kind of. I mean, since she was like 17, I've known her. And then I dated her from 20 to 22.
Okay. Now, what were you doing before Girls Gone Wild, though? Because didn't you have a private plane before Girls Gone Wild?
I did.
Yeah, what's going on, man?
Well, I had made a successful video series called Banned from Television. Do you remember that?
You know what? I think I do.
You buy that? Remember Banned from Television, where the lady gets hit by the train? Crazy stuff caught on tape?
Yeah, right. Okay, I do remember that, yeah. I'm always into that kind of stuff. Yeah, I remember that, yeah. So that's how you made all that money.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've had a few hits.
Yeah.
I've had a few hits, but the one that I'm most famous for, I think that people want to talk about the most, it seems like it's Girls Gone Wild.
Yeah.
Always. And I think with all this, thank God that whole Trump one and all that Me Too stuff is over. And hopefully, because, like, I mean, if you're going to elect a rape convicted person, thank God, like, society is definitely telling you a message. Like, we're over it.
Well, then let me
we're
ask
tired
you,
of Me Too, right?
Then let me ask you a question here, then, because now there was a third kidnapping, too. What was that one?
Oh, yeah, it was, but it was momentarily. It was just, let's call that one a robbery.
Okay.
And that was just a robbery maybe like 10 years ago. Yeah.
And did you know them?
No. And it was actually at a friend's house, so. But it's reported. I mean, I think it's on TMZ, but it was no big deal.
No big deal.
That
Okay.
one was uneventful. Yeah.
What do you
kind
think?
Of comical, if anything.
What do you think it is? That like all these people are taking shots at you?
Well, I don't think it's taking shots at me. I think, if you were wealthy and people are going to steal from you wherever you are, I mean, it's like, I don't think people are taking shots at the Louis Vuitton store when they're doing all their grab and goes. I think they are stealing from the rich like they always have. I mean, these are robberies and extortions. They're not like grudge attacks, right? Like, it's not personal. They're not breaking my legs, right? Like gangsters, this is stealing. It's a robbery, right?
Yeah.
I'm not getting shot,
Let me ask you this.
But
how'd you come up with the idea of Girls Gone Wild?
Well, I mean, I tell this very simply because, and I've told it before, at a very young age, I've always realized that I loved girls, and I really liked girls. And then, Ed, I realized that I liked them more when they were naked. Mm. So I thought other guys would like that too, and I was right. And that's the simplest story, but it's the truth.
Well, yeah, that goes back to cave drawings, I guess. right?
Right? What I mean? But there you go.
But what made you say, hey, spring break bikinis, alcohol, I got to get down there with a camera? What made you think of that? No one thought of that before.
Well, I had been on spring break, and I had been exposed to it.
Yeah.
And after that, it was like I had to forever, once I was exposed to it, I had to forever be a part of it. I mean, I love this, that well, not forever, but at least till I was 40, be at least around the spring break lifestyle, mostly till about 30. But I loved it. And it was something that I wanted to bring to the general public. And it was something that people were, it was one of the last free expressive events that was social. And now there's no more social because of anti-social media, as they call it, social media, but anti-social media. But, it's really taken away from the fun that we used to have. And I say we, you're not that old, Ed. So I put you in the category because I know you enjoyed watching the shows, too, with the pretty young girls.
No. Right? I had a very wild life. I had a nightclub in Manhattan. I was a wild man, okay? I used to smuggle marijuana from Mexico and stuff. I had a wild life, bro.
Good, okay. All right, okay.
All right. And the audience knows, And even now I get involved in a lot of crazy stuff, too. Matt Gaetz and stuff. All kind of crazy things all the time. Never get a break.
What did Matt Gaetz do?
Well, it's
again, what didn't he?
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, what was I gonna ask you? Oh yeah, how did you meet Donald Trump? How'd you get hooked up with him?
Donald Trump called me up one day. He was in my office, and I used to get a lot of crank calls in the early days of Girls Gone Wild. This is in the 90s, and we had, people had just said we were a lot alike, and we are, okay? hands down, Donald Trump and I are a lot alike, in great ways. So he called me up in my office, and he had called like 3 times. And my assistant was used to batting away like crank calls. He's on TV every day, all the time. So I always really admired Donald Trump as a boy, little boy. I went to boarding school in Connecticut and went to the opening of the Trump Tower. My parents took me there, who lived and got married in New York before I was born. But anyways, he had called, and then my assistant said, and then I'm like, are you? And my assistant said, hey, this is the 3rd time this lady's called. I'm walking past her, and she said, are you sure? She said, I'm like, are you sure it's really him? She says it's Donald Trump. I go, all right. I go, put it through. And then she put it through to my office. We talked for like an hour or 2. And then he's like, when's the nicest guy in the world? When's the next time you're coming to New York? Oh, I'm coming on Thursday. And then I was like, and he's like, I said, let me look at my calendar. I'm going on Thursday. He's like, morning, 10 a.m., Trump Tower, penthouse, my office, And then we ended up canceling our whole calendar. I think this is before the apprentice, before all of that.
Oh, yeah, way before.
Canceling our whole, way before. Canceling our whole calendars and spending the whole day-to-day. Like, we had just like a bromance. And, and I loved the guy, honestly. I really did. From the moment, I was like, this is a really great guy. It's my guy. I liked him. So, when people talk bad about Donald Trump, it's like, he's a nice guy. Like, I don't know. I really like him. So,
well,
but that was, and there are a lot of other stories I could tell, but my conversations with the president are confidential.
There you go. But I think
I did answer your question, however.
I think it would be obvious that what your common interest was with Donald Trump, correct? Beginning with the letter G, okay. Well, now let me ask you this, though, man, because now you hear all these stories, and I've had people on the show.
No comment.
you hear all these stories, and I've had people on this show talking about it, okay, about the pardons, okay. Do you need a pardon, first of all? And you could easily get one.
No, I'm good. I don't have federal issues. Hopefully.
So you don't need a pardon for this warrant that people talk about.
No. A federal pardon, thank God. No, I'm good.
So then why don't you come back to the States?
I said, go to abbywilson.com.
Oh, right.
And read her protective order. Yeah. And I have it all posted right there. So just read the actual documents. But, yeah. So she's claiming now that I molested my kids in Oklahoma, a state I've never been to. But you can read all about it. It's pretty interesting reading.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that, man. Maybe we'll have you come back and talk about that. Oh, boy. Okay, so, and what about a role in the administration? Maybe he could put you in, he can give you a cabinet position. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that would be fantastic. I mean, which one would you see me in, Ed?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good joke there. I can't think of one off the top of my head. But something wild, right? Maybe a wilderness wildlife. Right, Joe Francis is in charge of the wildlife fund. Oh, my God. So, Joe, what other big stuff in your life that you're really excited about that I haven't thought to ask you? Because we only got about 5 minutes left anyway.
Okay. Well, missing my children. My father recently passed. God bless his soul. So a shout out to my dad. He was a religious man, so we should say heaven for him. Yeah. We lost Quincy, another father to me, a few weeks ago before that. Quincy made it a few more years, but his last years were pretty bad. But God bless his soul. And I am after my next chapter here with the Netflix show, and I'm really excited that we've been in production for a while, and that Mario Lopez is the executive producer, who also beat God on mentions at the Golden Globe Awards. which I thought was very impressive. God only had, God had 0 mentions and Mario had 1. So that's me in a nutshell. And please watch my show on Netflix, because you will see the real documentary, the one that I actually participated in.
Well, then give us an idea. What are we going to see in there?
Well, we're going to see. Okay, so you've seen there's been a recent one, right? That recent one was from people that didn't know me, right? It was from like our lower level people who we've told not to do, and celebrity friends who are waiting for the one that I'm officially doing, right? They're not going to do some documentary that's going to, that's specifically out to trash their friend, and inaccurate. Like it's a lie. I mean, they do that and they have to make it up. So the people that were there know that's not true. So the higher level people, the people that were really behind the scenes, the people that really can tell the story that people want to hear, that you're asking right now.
Yeah. And what celebrity friends are we going to see in this Netflix?
You know what? I'm precluded from saying that too, but that'll be announced by Netflix. And when it is, great.
And will we be seeing Trump and Elon Musk in this Netflix documentary singing your praises?
I hope Elon does it. Yeah. I absolutely think Elon should do it, for sure. I mean, Trump, he's going to be president. I don't think so. I wouldn't if I was president.
When's the last time you talked to Elon?
Like 2 months ago.
When you bought that Tesla from him, did you have any problems with it? Did he sell you a lemon?
Yeah, but let's not go into that.
Oh, no. You bought a car from a friend and it had problems? I'm shocked. I'm shocked, Joe. That never happens, huh?
Never buy a car from a friend, even if it's Elon.
It's the truth, because there's a curse on that.
It hurts your relationship.
Yeah.
Right?
And wait, Joe, so when you go to meetjoefrancis.com, you run a charity still? You have your own charity?
I don't right now.
Okay.
No, I don't right now.
So meetjoefrancis.com. You can find him on Instagram, Real Joe Francis. Casa Aramara is his house down there in Mexico, and you can even rent rooms or something. He rents it out, I guess. And a documentary coming up on Netflix. Joe Francis, what do you want to leave us with in like 1 minute?
I want to say that I can't wait to be back in Vegas, man. Let's hang out.
Yeah, I'm not in Vegas anymore. I'm in Florida, but let me know. I'll hang out with you wherever you want to hang out.
Okay. Wait, sorry. Well, let's hang out in Florida then. Wait, where are you in Florida now?
It's an undisclosed location. I got a lot of problems out there
with
stalkers and stuff.
Okay. Well, we'll hang out in Florida.
Yeah, definitely, man. Joe Francis, I really enjoyed this, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night, my friend.